This week in fantasy movies, Korean exports are getting into every corner of the genre space, and we are here for it. Plus, the One Piece actors totally understood the assignment, and we've got brand new leaked photos from the sets of the Buffy revival and Greta Gerwig's Narnia movie. All that and more here at Excalibur Con in Duluth. I'm Rude Girl, you're watching This Week in Fantasy Movies, and we are so back, baby. Now, for old time's sake.
Let me tell you guys about Homestuck. Roll trailer.
John, you're not wearing one of your silly disguises, are you? It would be a shame to make a fool of yourself in front of a gentleman such as your father.
That's right, the team that brought you Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel is prepping an animated adaptation of Homestuck, the epic webcomic that took the internet by storm before it crashed and burned.
Look in the sky, numbnut!
As you can imagine, with the famously chill fan bases involved, the internet had a totally normal one about this announcement.
This, of course, is probably the worst news I've ever heard in my whole life.
Wait, why am I so ravenous right now?
But if you think about it, it's a match made in hell. And in this case, that is a glowing compliment. Glowing with the red horns of a demon form, that is. We've got Vivzy Pop executive producing, Toby Fox voicing John Egbert, and Andrew Hussey coming back as the head writer. The pilot episode drops in September.
So, you plan to sneak into a highly protected vault guarded by a millennia-old sect of warrior monks and waltz out with knowledge so dangerous it's been scrubbed from history?
Oh, it'll be far more complicated than that.
Amazon dropped a new trailer for The Legend of Vox Machina Season 4. This time, the murder hobos are planning a sprawling magic heist.
Other than guilt by association, what do I get out of this?
And Netflix poached an episode director from Rick and Morty to bring us Haunted Hotel.
Are they trying to scare me or is that regular booing?
G-Kids had a very busy weekend, gassing up a sequel to The Legend of High.
有新任务了，这是你的师姐，陆野。我不是关门弟子吗？
And Angel's Egg, a 1986 direct-to-video anime movie from the director of Ghost in the Shell.
夢？鳥はどんな夢を見るの？
It gets a theatrical debut with a 4K restoration on November 19th. Speaking of anime, we got trailers for The Dark History of the Reincarnated Villainess, This Monster Wants to Eat Me, and Call Me Eerie Lord Bailiff, all coming in October. FX dropped an homage to the original Alien trailer using footage from Alien Earth. Of course, if you really want an homage to Alien, you can always come visit me on Twitch, twitch.tv/RudeGirl. Over there, we absolutely love and appreciate the Xenomorph, Ripley. It's all copacetic in this house.
We don't solve anything in this family with words. We do it with deeds. Most of them dirty.
And Netflix dropped trailers for the back half of Wednesday Season 2 and the second season of One Piece. At the One Piece Day celebration on August 19th in Tokyo, we were treated to some first looks into the Netflix One Piece show. Several fan-favorite characters have been cast already, like Joe Manganiello as Mr. Zero, Katie Seagal as Dr. Correa, Lara Obova as Miss All Sunday, Charitha Chandran as Miss Wednesday, Callum Kerr as Captain Smoker, and Brendan Murray as Brogy. Of course, the main cast will return as well, along with some of these same antagonists after the crew from Season 1. The show will continue where the first season left off on the journey to the Grand Line. Along the way, the crew will make some new friends and face new foes. According to a letter shared by Netflix and series creator Ichiro Oda, Season 2 will have the Straw Hat crew visiting new locations, including Logetown, Reverse Mountain, Whiskey Peak, Little Island, and Drum Island. Though there isn't a premiere date set, Netflix has confirmed a 2026 release date. And if you're excited for Season 2 of One Piece, we have more good news for you. Netflix has also confirmed that One Piece has already been renewed for Season 3. Production will kick off later this year, and we don't know much yet, but rest assured, we'll be listening to our transponder snails for more news. Unfortunately, it isn't all fun news for Netflix's One Piece. Remember that cast list we talked about? Well, there was some racist backlash against one of the actresses. Charitha Chandran is playing Miss Wednesday, also known as Nefertari Vivi. In the manga and anime, Miss Wednesday is depicted as being light-skinned, and Chandran has darker skin. This has caused some to complain and even harass the actor with racist jabs on social media. While racism invading the fandom isn't anything new, this is still worth talking about. Consider the character name, for starters. Part of it is Nefertari, which is Egyptian. And the place and arc this character originates from is heavily inspired by Egypt. Rob Coletti, who is set to play Waypole, pointed out that any Egyptology nerd could tell you this. there's a wide range of skin tones there. So someone with dark skin is just as believable as someone with light skin. Plus, the freaking creator of One Piece thought Chandran represented his character well. Coletti wasn't the only one with choice words. Emily Rudd, who plays Nami, added that people's idea of canon doesn't excuse racism. As fans, it can be hard to see the worst of us spoiling the fun. But in times like this, it's important to remember that most of us are here to enjoy the things we love and that brought us to fandoms in the first place. And from what it looks like, there's going to be a lot to love in the One Piece Season 2. But wait! We aren't done with One Piece news just yet. The Netflix show wasn't the only news to come out of One Piece Day 2025. The heroine's light novels are getting an anime adaptation. The novels have been running since 2019 and feature the adventures of a different woman from One Piece in each chapter. The anime will feature adventures that you won't get to see in the main series, so that's another thing for One Piece fans to look forward to. Moving on, the European film market and Montreal's frontier market announced a new genre collab for 2026 called EFM Frontiers Focus. This collab will showcase 5 genre films that are work in progress or in production at EFM 2026. Filmmakers will get to pitch their work and show some clips with the goal of securing funding for completion, attracting sales agents, and more. There's also going to be networking events tailored to the genre community. While work in progress showcases do exist in multiple filmmaking events, the focus on genre films in particular highlights the innovation and creativity within the space of genre filmmaking. Genre films can sometimes be overlooked as just defining a film's category, but we all know that doing genre filmmaking well is an art. Granted, filmmaking itself is an art, but finding that delicate balance of taking established conventions of a genre while still subverting the expectations of or presenting new ideas to an audience can really elevate a film's story from good to great. In the press release announcing the collab, Tanya Meisner said that genre films are attracting leading creative voices and they want to put them in the spotlight. Filmmaking is often a game of making the right connections, and that spotlight is huge for getting films in front of potential connections that filmmakers might not reach on their own. By showcasing these projects, EFM Frontiers Focus wants to bridge the gap and benefit both the creatives and the business heads. The call for projects is open until November 13th. They're looking for feature-length genre films currently in production or in post-production and seeking sales agents or buyers. Hey Sam, can Battlemage get in on that?
Maybe someday. We'll add it to the list.
Slay. The Skydance and Paramount merger is done. It made waves earlier this month when it was finalized because Paramount has been struggling to stay relevant in the streaming wars. Haven't we all? The hottest topics about the merger is the money and what the new company is planning to do. Between the cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Paramount's $16 million settlement with Trump, and the company's new leaders saying that they plan to find $2 billion in cost savings from a company that's already been struggling, discussing the money raises a lot of questions and challenges. But there's hope. With the merger, we also get confirmation that fan-favorite projects like Star Trek will get priority. Starting with the money. Paramount's main revenue comes from cable TV, and with the rise of streaming came the fall of cable. While they did launch streaming service Paramount Plus, its offerings were too slim to hold its own against streaming giants like Netflix and YouTube and Disney and Amazon. The merger means more financial strength to Paramount to gain better footing among the streamers and access to Skydance's production and technology. Skydance gets more content and the legacy Paramount had built before streaming began to choke it out. But the merger does have some bumps in the road. Paramount was facing a $10 million lawsuit from President Trump. They likely would have won the case had they bothered to fight, but the cowards forked over $16 million to settle before the merger took place, since the merger needed federal approval. You probably saw that Stephen Colbert criticized the settlement as a bribe to President Trump. Official statements from Paramount claim the merger and the settlement were completely coincidental, that the settlement had nothing to do with getting approval. But then they canceled Colbert's show, which looks like a clear sign that maybe it's not so unrelated, but that couldn't be the case, right? I mean, Paramount itself said so. They also said they canceled Colbert's show for purely financial reasons. Must be a coincidence. At least Star Trek is not only safe, but reportedly a priority among other fan favorite series. Paramount this week announced 2 Star Trek films and a new Top Gun project, on top of a schedule packed with A Quiet Place 3, Scream 7, and The Running Man. J.J. Abrams is set to produce the new Star Trek films, but it's not yet known if Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, or the rest of the crew will return. Star Trek being a priority makes sense. Its legacy in the sci-fi world is unchallenged, not even by Star Wars. Who wrote that? And while some of the TV shows are slated to end in the next couple of years, it's safe to say we haven't seen the last of the Federation. You know what else we haven't seen the last of? This episode's sponsor, Excalibur Con, who was kind enough to give us a panel slot to see all of you wonderful people. The con will be wrapped up by the time you see this episode on the interwebs, but it's all the more reason to get it on your calendar for next year. Excalibur Con has so many gaming opportunities, both tabletop and video. This year we had 18 special guests of honor spanning cosplayers, voice actors, pro wrestlers, former Power Rangers, and more. Plus, your badge gets you into a ton of other activities at no extra cost. The best part is that all this supports charities like the Minnesota Masonic Children's Collective, the Pediatric Oncology Treasure Chest Foundation, and the Minnesota Star Wars Collective Alliance's Mental Wellness Scholarship Fund. So come on up to Duluth next summer, August 15th and 16th, to experience Excalibur Con. Check the link in the doobly-doo to learn more. Now let's take it to Sam on the hype meter.
Thanks, Rudy. We're going to get to the streaming charts in a sec, but first we have some awards to recognize. The Critics' Choice Super Awards gave wins to Sinners for Best Horror Movie and Michael B. Jordan for Best Actor in a Horror Movie, and Demi Moore got Best Actress in a Horror Series for her work on The Substance. Dune Part 2 landed Best Sci-Fi or Fantasy Movie, and Timothée Chalamet landed Best Actor for a Sci-Fi or Fantasy Movie. Best Actress for a Sci-Fi or Fantasy Movie went to Sophie Thatcher for Companion, which feels like either a great personal win for Thatcher or a disappointing step back for feminism, given the subject matter. Shogun, The Last of Us, Andor, and Severance also picked up some other awards for the action, horror, and sci-fi and fantasy categories. But the biggest awards to highlight this week are the Hugos. The Worldcon voters cast their ballots, and the best dramatic presentations are Dune Part 2 and the finale episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. Hopping over to the streaming charts, 28 Years Later debuted at number 1 this week, with Sinners climbing back up to number 4 and Final Destination Bloodlines dropping down to number 10. And everyone may be clowning on Ice Cube's War of the Worlds adaptation with a 0% score on Rotten Tomatoes, but you sure as hell have been watching it because Amazon Prime ranked it as its 5th most watched movie in the US. Looking at series, we have Outlander Blood of My Blood at number 7 and Foundation at number 8. Further up the list, Alien Earth crawled out of the egg to number 1, followed by Wednesday at number 2. Actually, Netflix reports that the first half of Wednesday Season 2 hit 50 million views on the first 5 days of streaming, which matches the number of views for all of Season 1. Also, looking ahead to future shows, Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism announced last week that the K-Story and Comics in America Expo in Los Angeles had some serious results, touting more than 25,000 visitors and almost $16 million in potential business deals for Korean webtoons and comic studios. At the box office, Freakier Friday holds at number 2. And over in the Korean box office, My Daughter is a Zombie just celebrated its second week at number 1 last weekend, beating out F1 and Ballerina. Finally, the song Golden from the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, which we should have expected because the whole thing is a friggin' bop. But it's also the first number 1 song for any female K-pop artist, and it's only the second song from an animated film to reach number 1 this decade. So yeah, that's what people have been hyped for this week. Back to you, Rudy.
Thanks, Sam. In quick news, Dave Bautista is in the final negotiations to the cast of Henry Cavill's Highlander remake. If Amazon hires Bautista, he'll play Kurgan, an immortal barbarian who's known to ruthlessly attack other immortals over the centuries, and duels Henry Cavill's Connor McLeod in modern-day New York. I mean, it's no Gleahan in the Names of Industry, out now on streaming and Blu-ray, but I guess it'll do. In sleep he sang to me. On screen, he appears? Maybe. Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera might be getting an anime adaptation. LW Entertainment is partnering with Cubic Pictures to explore opportunities for the anime, but it's still in the very early stages. In other goth love story news, a new Addams Family animated film is in the works, and for fans of the original series, it could be a breath of fresh air, as it's entirely unrelated to the Netflix Wednesday series and the recent animated movies. But that could be isn't more substantial, as Alfred Goff and Miles Miller, creators of Wednesday, are the ones working on it. Looking for a little more blood? The third installment of Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey is official. Richard Stanley, who directed and wrote Color Out of Space, has been announced as the writer for the low-budget slasher. Not too much has been released yet, but the production is set to kick off in early 2026. Out of the 100-acre wood and into the world of Pandora, James Cameron has Avatar: Fire and Ash set to release, with Avatar 4 expected in 2029 and 5 to follow in 2031. Cameron confirmed that the films are fully written through Film 5, but he's got ideas for Avatar 6 and 7. Why so many? It's too much. While the Avatar movies don't stop coming, Shrek is a bit stuck in the mud, with release date pushed back to June 30th, 2027. In a brief sneak peek, Universal announced Zendaya joined the original cast as Shrek and Fiona's daughter, Felicia, with a jarring animation that's way more Minions-esque than the classic DreamWorks style. This is what happens when you lay off your in-house animators and outsource the work to other studios. Here's hoping the delay leads to a better look. Speaking of Minions, Illumination Studios is pairing up with Nintendo again for Super Mario World, the sequel to 2023's Super Mario Bros. It'll hit theaters next April. No details on the plot yet, but the cast returns to expand on the world of the first film. And another beloved 8-bit franchise is also getting a moment on the big screen. Ben Zavzov and Evan Turner are writing the script for Space Invaders, based on the classic arcade game. And spend all the quarters you want on that, but hold on tight to your pennies, because Final Destination's 7th installment is also in the works. Bloodlines co-writer Laurie Evans Taylor is set to write the new film. Also, the new Resident Evil movie won't be a retelling of the games, according to director Zach Krager, who wants to expand on the world of the games. According to IMDb, it tells a story of a courier tasked with delivering a package to a remote hospital, finding himself caught in the middle of an outbreak, and must fight through the hordes of mutated creatures to survive. It's expected to release in September 18 of 2026. In Scooby-Dooby news, Netflix is making a live-action Scooby-Doo show. The show is set for 8 episodes and will feature the gang solving a mystery at a summer camp. The Netflix press release suggests this is an origin story. Looking into the galaxy far, far away, despite the rumors, Ewan McGregor will not be returning as Obi-Wan in Season 2 of Ahsoka. The confusion came from a comment McGregor made about his wife, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, appearing in the show. Fans had misheard it as we instead of she, but Lucasfilms has squashed the rumor and clarified that he was talking about his wife and not himself. But what they didn't address is the conspiracy of McGregor and his family taking over Star Wars, one character at a time. For those of you that don't know, McGregor is actually the nephew of Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge Antilles, his uncle and his wife? Battlemage is on to you, sir. In show business news, hot off the heels of a very good quarter and taking a cue from the success of Sinners and Superman, Warner Bros. CEO David Zaslav announced in a letter to shareholders that it's aiming to release 12 to 14 films in theaters each year going forward. The plan is to have 1 to 2 tentpole films, 1 to 2 DC movies, 3 to 4 horror and comedy films under New Line Cinema, and 1 to 2 animated films, plus some other films with more moderate budgets. Here's hoping this plan also comes with a side of listening to the freaking artists for once, because that's the reason why those films did so well. And the horror and genre film label Void Signal landed a big digital and physical distribution deal with Alliance Home Entertainment this week. Void Signal also announced a slate of films coming this fall, including cult-fueled horror film The Healing, Maria, about a neurotic film star who turns into a vengeful cyborg, and Holy Mother, a gory trans film billed as chainsaws, lasers, and non-stop carnage. Baz Luhrmann is in the thick of casting a Joan of Arc movie for Warner Brothers. Deadline reports that after an absolute feeding frenzy among young and up-and-coming actresses, Isla Johnston has been offered the lead role. But the deal is still in the works, so of course there's no official word yet. Fun fact, right after we finished filming the episode, Brandon Sanderson took to the stage at Worldcon where he dropped a lore dump on his efforts to get a Mistborn movie made.
We figured we'd try to make Mistborn as a film with Fortnite money. He's a pretty cool guy, but he's like, yeah, sure, let's give it a try. We spent like 5 years working on this. making this film. We had casting, we had a lot of things done, and it just didn't end up working out. Last year, I'm like, hey, it's not gonna work out. It's obviously, we're done. Can I have my rights back? He's like, yeah, sure. So we went back to square one, and I went out and I did pitches in May. Once you do a Kickstarter for $40 million, everyone in Hollywood says, ooh! Anything is open. I'm willing to try anything, though I do still believe in a Mistborn theatrical and a Stormlight premium cable.
And finally, we got leaked set photos from the Buffy revival and Greta Gerwig's Narnia movie. The Buffy photo shows Sarah Michelle Gellar in a boss babe dress and the new Slayer played by Ryan Kira Armstrong. Plus, there's a couple photos of set decoration for Sunnydale's Vampire Weekend, which looks like the town's new festival set in a graveyard. On the Narnia side, the crew is out in London with some big sets for The Magician's Nephew. This adaptation looks like it's set in 1950s Britain, which is odd considering the original book was set in the late Victorian era. If the time periods remain consistent, that will mean that The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe adaptation would be set in the early 2000s. Cue the ska music. Why Gerwig would make this change is anyone's guess, but we'll keep you up to speed as we learn more here on This Week in Fantasy Movies. Looking ahead to the rest of the week, Thursday we'll see Primitive War coming to theaters. It's about Vietnam War soldiers who are sent back in time to fight dinosaurs. We also have new episodes of Alien Earth on Monday night, Clevites on Wednesday morning, Star Trek and Dan to Dan on Thursday, and Secrets of the Silent Witch on Friday. But the biggest event this weekend is the K-pop Demon Hunters theatrical sing-along event. Netflix is always loath to put its movies in theaters, so anytime the fans can gently bully them into giving these movies the release they deserve, that's a win in our book. And that about does it for This Week in Fantasy Movies, but there's more where that came from. Go catch our extra special bonus Q&A over on our Patreon, and we'll have more in fantasy movies, well, not next week, but whenever we get our studio back.